Hi everyone, welcome to the first video of my channel where I'll be taking you guys along as I write my first novel. Very quickly, I want to give you some information about, like, creatively speaking, where I am, where I come from, etc., and what has led me to write this book. So I have a background in writing horror, but then I realized that horror is too dark for me. I have more of a tender heart, and I really like horror as, like, watching movies and stuff like that, and sometimes reading books like Stephen King books and whatnot. But yeah, writing horror itself feels a little too dark for me. So that's why I started looking for other genres to try my hand at, and that was fantasy. I've been a fantasy lover forever, since I was a kid. Funnily enough, I haven't read that much fantasy, but I have a love for it for sure, and I do have some knowledge about it, and I've watched a lot of movies about fantasy, like The Lord of the Rings, for instance, and stuff like that. So and I actually do have the Lord of the Rings book, which I'm actually reading right now, as well as The Shadow of the Gods by Jung Win, The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, and what's it called? Legends and Lattice by Travis. Let me get the book. And Legends and Lattice by Travis Baldry. Now, with that said, yeah, I have a lot of love for fantasy for sure, and that's what I want to write. That's why I want to write a high fantasy / epic fantasy book with, I hope to maybe be able to write a trilogy, but I don't want to get ahead of myself right now. I just want to write a good book. The issue that I have, though, right now with fantasy, because I've been toying around with a lot of ideas for a while and nothing has sticked. And that is because, listen, I have all the respect for books like this one that go for the typical, orcs and whatnot. That's fine. That's fine, and it's fun, and it's cool, and good vibes all around. But for me, in my creative mind, it's not exciting enough. And that's where the main inspiration for the current book came from, or comes in, called Elden Ring. For those of you who don't know, Elden Ring is a video game set in a fantasy world called The Lands Between. Well, it's more like a landmass, but you know what I mean. And it's very weird, which I love. A lot of the creatures are very strange. They're not, at least to me, I had never really seen creatures like that in a fantasy setting, in such a high fantasy setting like Elden Ring. And I just loved it. Honestly, it blew my mind. I was in love with it. And so I feel like that kind of sparked a sort of, I want to call it a hype sort of within me, this motivation, right? So the other day I started writing an idea, and I was like, you know what, I feel like this would be a good time to start doing that YouTube project that I've been thinking about for a long time. So here I am. So basically what I'm trying to make is definitely something that is epic fantasy, high fantasy, but not the typical Lord of the Rings / D&D type fantasy. I want something a little stranger, a little more weird. Maybe not as weird as, say, Perdido Street Station, but weird. And one last thing that I want to say is that it's also going to be quite interesting for me to be doing this, because English isn't my first language, Spanish is. And even though I do think that I have a pretty good English, I wouldn't say I have a mastery over it. And for conversation and stuff like that, I feel like my English is more than enough. But for writing a novel, with good prose and whatnot, I feel like I need to step up my game. So I've been reading a bit. Actually, all of the books that I mentioned, just now, are books that I'm currently reading. So for instance, this one I'm actually reading right now, and it's in English because I'm gonna write in English. So today, for this first video, I'm gonna share a quick summary of what I'm working on. But just like I'm not kidding. I basically just started, so there's not a lot. But I'm hoping that on the next video I'm gonna be further along. So right now, what I'm doing with this world is just writing a little bit about the history of the world, because I need to know what the world is, what the history is, because I don't want to start at the year one. I want to start somewhere a little more along the lines where, to make this world feel old and mysterious, and like, oh my gosh, I can go, like have the characters go and find like a cave that turns out it was an ancient tomb from this great whatever, and you know what I mean, like I want a little bit of that. So right now, okay, I'm gonna tell you. So the world is okay. So the world so far is like, okay, Big Bang, magic, whatever, and then there's this space goddess of sorts, right? Like think of her as this like blue lady that is just kind of huge and floating around space, and she finds this specific planet that is like an irregular sphere, right? So it's been like missing chunks and stuff, and because it's so rare, she kind of falls in love with it a little bit, and she's like, I want to bring life to it. But then, she hugs this rock and nothing is really happening, so she starts crying because she really, really wants to bring life to this world. And her tears are like this river, that start like filling up this world, and the world started like, sucking all this water in, and it's turning everything to life, and this is a thing that happens over a long time, and she decides, to allow herself to become part of this world. So she kind of sacrifices herself, because she's gonna melt literally into this world. She's gonna be sucked in by this world, and the world and her are gonna be one. And while that's happening, the world, she's so powerful and so full of magic that the world can't handle it. It's too much, it's too intense. But she's like halfway through her melting into this world, right? Like she's part of like mountain ranges and stuff like that by now. And so the few amounts of life that are already there, like animals and some very primitive beings, maybe humans, I'm not sure yet, they're kind of like dying because there's like earthquakes and storms and volcanic eruptions and stuff like that. So in order for her to save this planet that she has already melted into, she's like, I want to, save this world, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create gods, to channel this magic into this saturation of magic. So she starts creating gods, and this takes a lot of years for her to do. And while she's creating these gods, the gods act like channelers. I don't know if that's a word, but it's acting like the magic is channeling into them. And the first god, for instance, whose name I'm still not sure about, this god, he suffers extremely because it's too much power. So now the earth is like settling down, but he is taking all this magic within him, and it's too much. And so the goddess then makes a sibling, and then it becomes a lot more manageable. And then, but still, it's too much. So she makes this pantheon of gods basically as her last attempt to save this world. And then she finally becomes part of the world, and the gods are left to watch over this world. But here's the thing. One of these gods was birthed without her knowing, because in this saturation of magic and in the suffering of all these creatures, a god was birthed from like the overflow of this magic combined with the suffering of these people and of these creatures, of like even the plants, like the dying everything. And this is like a dark god. And so far, that's as far as I've gotten. The last thing I can say is that I know But this world is ruled by, well, not ruled, but it is filled with spirits. Not ghosts, but spirits, right? Like everything alive has a spirit. So there are like spirits of the forest, and there's spirits of humans, and there's spirits of animals, and there's spirits of everything, and everything, nothing ever truly dies. Everything, think of these spirits like these beautiful strands of light that get lifted from whatever, from a plant, from a dying plant, or from a dying animal, or from a dying person. And these spirits kind of drift in the air, or in the land, or in the water, and they kind of become part of the world, back to where they were, from where they came from, sort of. And a lot of these spirits can influence the world around them. So think of this. If there is, for instance, a evil person that did a lot of harm and then he dies, this spirit would be kind of charged with this negative energy. And this spirit could then potentially be, cause things like accidents or illnesses or things like that. But on the other side of the coin, if someone was really good, someone was really, kind and did a lot of good for the world, then he does the opposite. He heals, he helps people, he gives people luck. But it's important to know that these spirits, they're no longer like the person. They're not ghosts, like I said. They become something more. They become like forces of nature. And yeah, so that is so far the story that I have going. I'm really excited to continue writing about this story. I don't know, I think it's sounding pretty cool, but then again, like, this is just the beginning, and maybe a lot of the things that I just mentioned right now will have changed. But I'm hoping that you guys will accompany me in this journey, and somewhat of an adventure for me at least. And yeah, I'm really hoping to show you guys more of this world. So with that said, I hope you guys will stick around. So if you wanna, if the world is so far sounding good to you, please subscribe and like and share and all that stuff. And I'll see you guys for the next video, where I hopefully will have advanced on a lot of the lore. So yeah, without further ado, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.